After you've gone through our last section, in which you're understanding your event, you're ready to prepare your event plan. This is very important to try and get this part right because it's a domino chain. As you fulfill each part of the event as the event coordinator, or you pick up your position somewhere in this video series of what your actual job may be, you'll understand what somebody had to go through to get to those positions as well. And that could help you someday in preparing for your own events. So it doesn't matter if you're a volunteer or an event coordinator or if you're the stage manager. What matters is that you pay attention to your job, but learn about the other jobs. At one point, I was a stagehand. Later on in my life, I became a stage manager, and I became an event coordinator and event manager where I planned the whole thing. It was nice to work your way up because nobody really starts out at the top. So let's talk about preparing your event plan. The next step after understanding your event. Once you have an event idea or preparing for it, you'll find this is where half of your problems will occur that will result in your event either being as a huge success or a semi-failure. Remember, most of the time, you're the only one that will really notice the failures if you prepare for your event properly. Because the whole idea of your event is so the public doesn't know there was a problem. Let me repeat that. You want to set up all your events so that no matter what happens, the public doesn't know that there's a problem. Remember, you have a goal to bring people back. The idea is to always bring people in with your initial marketing, but bring them back to your events if you're a production company, to your musical venue if you're a stage manager or a band manager or some sort of music festival manager. You want people to come back. If you can't control everything from this point, people will not come back. And people are the money or the idea behind your event, because some events aren't made for money. Some events are made for the community, and you want the community to come back. That gets you your sponsorship. That gets you your reason for being. In preparing your event plan, you're going to need to have knowledge of some of the following things so that you can prepare and figure out the number of personnel that you're going to need, traffic patterns you're going to need, and things that we've discussed so far. So we're going to start with the basics. Now let's talk about scheduling. If you're the type of person that can't arrive on time, or you're the type of person that arrives late because you figure, hey, everybody can wait for me, you shouldn't be doing events. Now I told you earlier in the video, I don't care. I don't care where you're from, I don't care what you do, I don't care what color you are, I don't care if you walk on two hands. I don't care. What I do care about, though, and what I'm trying to get across in these videos, is other people might care. And if you ask a lot of people to volunteer and show up at 9:45 for an event that opens at 10, what's your expectation? Your expectation is for them to be there at 9:45. Well, what's that mean you got to do? You have to be there before 9:45. That's right. You don't have to be there at 9:45, getting your phone out, put your coffee and your coat away. No. If you had to do that, you need to be there around 9. You need to be ready for those people. You need to be ready for others, not just the people that are coming to the event. That's your job as an event coordinator. Now, if you're somewhere down in the food chain and you're just the stage manager, you don't have to arrive as early, but you have to arrive before any of your talent arrives. You have to be there and make sure that your stage is ready to go. If there's a lighting guy on hand, you have to be there to meet with him and make sure all the lighting is working. I've been the stage lighting guy, and there's nothing worse than standing around waiting for somebody to show up to tell me what lights that they're going to want for a show. Hopefully you're going to have figured it out. That's not the point. You hired me to put in lights. If the lights aren't good enough for you, I can't help you if you don't show up early enough to tell me how you need them. So timing is very important. Once you've agreed to work an event, whether you're a volunteer or a manager or talent or vendor, you've agreed to arrive on time. So when you do your schedule the times that all your people need to show up to do their jobs. Just because the event opens at 10 o'clock doesn't mean that everybody shows up at 9:45. Stagger the arrivals. That's right, stagger them. You're the event person. Maybe you want to get there at 8 o'clock. Hang out, walk around, look at the signage, look at the entrances, look at the exits. Maybe you'll get there and notice an alien spacecraft has landed on your main stage and you're going to move it. If you arrived at 9:45, you don't have time to deal with this problem. But if you arrived at 8 o'clock, you got a couple hours you didn't have. So maybe you want to arrive early and then schedule your assistant to arrive next so that both of you can walk around and look at the problems. Your vendor person to arrive next so that once the vendor area is set, you can send them off and they're there an hour early to get the vendors in. This is a staggered format, and that's what you need to do, is arrange to be staggered. Because if everybody arrives at once, you're going to have 25 people standing in front of you asking you what's going on. That's going to take you 30 to 40 minutes to deal with. It's much better to take 5 minutes to deal with one person individually. So we ask that you schedule. Staff first, vendors, talent, and then attendees. Think of it that way if you have to. It's a simple formula. Staff, vendors, talent, and attendees. That way the person that was working with the vendors can make sure they're there to work with the attendees, because the vendors have to be in before the show's open anyway. And if you're the person that's going to take care of the talent as a management person, once you've shown up and made sure everything's okay, you can break loose to take care of a stage. You can't be there all day, because what if something goes wrong? You should consider the following things when you set up your schedule, your timeline, your breakdown of what you think might occur. Because remember, it's the goal of the universe and everyone involved in it to mess up every one of your plans. That's right. They're all supposed to go in some sort of orderly fashion. You know that. I know that because we wrote it down on paper. But the simple truth of the matter is that just about the time you think that everything's going right, I guarantee you something will go wrong, just to test your willpower. So let's talk about schedule. What do you have to consider when you schedule? Well, you have to consider the venue. What time can you get in the venue? How many days early? How many hours early? How many minutes early? And how much does that cost you? What time can you set up? Can you set up stuff ahead of time? I used to do sales for an international wastewater company where I flew to the UK, to Canada, and various places in the United States once a month. Now, I had equipment that had to precede me, and those places that I flew to when I was at their venues, Chicago, New Orleans, San Francisco, New York, Wessex Water in Birmingham, England, all of my equipment had to arrive before a certain hour on a certain day so the union stagehands could put it in my booth so that when I arrived, it was already there. Because if I arrived and it wasn't there, the union stagehands would put my equipment in last, and I might have 5 minutes to set it up. So what I learned is that every time I left a show, I didn't send the equipment back to where I worked for a living. I was in California. I just sent it to the next show, and they would store it in a warehouse before they would take it to my booth space. And your show could be the same way. It could be that the venue you work with might have storage in it, and you might be able to put stuff there a week before you even think about setting up instead of bringing it in all at 1 minute. You'll need to find out if somebody's going to be there. It may be that you can just plug into any wall socket. It may be that you can't. It may be that that's a regulated house and it's a union house, and you have to have a union electrician be there before you plug a single thing into a wall or hook up a hose. All of these things matter. Labor matters. You might be out in some sort of fairgrounds where that's okay, but either way, you need to find out when somebody's going to be there that's going to help you do what you need to do. So you need to make sure that you have a listing, an understanding of all the physical requirements. How many stages you'll have, how big they are, what size are they, which door will they come in. Once they're in, how will they be set up? Will they be set up back to front or front to back or left to right, depending on where the door is located? Will they need skirting? Will they need power? How much power? How many bands am I going to have on there? How many amps is each band going to have? Are they going to have a drum set? Am Am I going to have a sound guy? Where's the soundboard going to go? How long is this cable from the stage to the soundboard? These are all questions. So when you get to that venue, you need to know that somebody's going to be there to help you in case there's a problem in answering those questions. Will they be there the whole time? Will they never leave? Maybe they'll only be there for 4 hours and you're on your own. What time will you have to be out? Maybe your event's over at 2 o'clock in the morning. Maybe it's over at 5 o'clock on Sunday after 3 days. But you have a window that you're going to have to be out of there. And again, are those sound guys and those electricians and the laborers and people who are hooking up the hoses for your fish tanks, were they all responsible? And are they all going to be there when it's time to unhook everything? Because if they're not, and they have a set of requirements that they've told you, just unplug it, everything's okay, get that in writing. Don't skimp when you're looking at your rider for renting a space. That's part of your schedule. You need to know the vendor schedule. If you're going to have vendor booths, how many are you going to have? What size are they going to be? 10 by 10, 10 by 20? Are they all going to use the same drape wall that you get from every convention company? Or are they going to bring their own pop-ups? If you want to see something, see a small room, a couple 100 feet square, with 40 pop-ups in it. It gets really interesting. And by the way, sometimes fire marshals don't like pop-ups because sprinklers rain water down on pop-ups and then it goes all over the place and it doesn't work effectively, especially in a low overhead situation. So you may not be able to use pop-ups, but you may have forgot to mention that to your vendors who are counting on displaying all their items on pop-ups, who now realize that they can't put their pop-up with their name on it anymore, and they don't have signage for their name, and all they are is pissed off. That's right. And here's the problem with vendors. Vendors pay you money to be there to sell. If you provide them with an environment that they cannot sell at, they will not come back. And they will let other vendors know that you have a problem with your event. So when you're talking about your schedule and location, these are things you need to consider. Then you consider your volunteer schedule. When will your volunteers need to be there? How long will they need to be there? Where will they need to be? And then what are you going to do with them when they're done? Are you going to let them eat for free? I've seen that done at some places. Or are you going to let them enjoy the event? And lastly, the performance schedule. This is critical. For every place that you have a performance schedule, listen to this phrase. The show goes on time. If your stage isn't ready and it's an hour late and you had a group for the first hour, don't shove that group in. Start with your second performer. Run them on time. The show always goes on. It goes always on time. And here's why. Because if you delay one group an hour, you delay everybody. And people have followers, sometimes hundreds to thousands, that will come and see them perform. If you tell 1,000 people at a 10,000 person event that Steam Train, this big band, is going to come to perform at 9:30, Steam Train better perform at 9:30. If your shows start at 7 and your stage isn't ready to 7:30, you don't sacrifice Steam Train's time as being the top slot. You sacrifice the first group's time. That's right. Even though a lot of people came to see them, it's usually better. And if you have to sacrifice people early because you screwed up on your staging, you didn't watch this whole video because you would have learned not to do it. That's what we're talking about.